Hey everyone, this is Melissa and I am the talkative introvert. Alright, so now we're on to episode 4. Currently at the time of this recording, I haven't even gone live yet. I'm still working on a few things before I can go live. Um, but I'm also still really nervous. I don't know, like, it's kind of too late at this point. I've already kind of I didn't invest a whole lot of money. Like, it's not like I invested hundreds of dollars or anything. It's probably even less than 100. It's not even that much. But I'm still just nervous, like, releasing this and then having everyone listen. And I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna go the promotion route and, like, tell my friends and family and tell everyone to go and listen, or if I'm just gonna let it go, let it run its course and like see what happens. Like I have all these social media platforms I already created. Like I already created Facebook, the Facebook page and the Instagram page, and I have like the Buzzsprout website that comes with the membership, and I have like a separate Gmail account for it, and I did create a YouTube channel for it too. I still need to figure that out. Hopefully, by the time this goes live, I've figured out the whole YouTube thing because I'm only doing audio. I'm not doing any video. I'm not quite there. And I don't know if I will ever do this, if I will ever record myself. So right now, what I'm currently working on is getting some intro music. I still don't have any. I I really want my husband to make me one, but I know he's super busy. Sometimes he works weekends. He works in construction, so he's pretty tired by the time he gets home, which is understandable. So hopefully he does make me one, but it probably won't be for a while. So until that happens, I'm probably just gonna search up through some royalty-free music, which is kind of difficult because I'm so indecisive. I'm I can't. I've already gone through a bunch, but I still can't find like the one that I really want. And it kind of reminds me of a. So if you guys ever watched The Good Place, I'm a lot like Chidi. So if you haven't seen that show, you should go and watch it. It's pretty funny, and it's really good. I really like the writing. I think it's like on Netflix and Hulu. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it is. But Chidi, one of the characters, is like extremely indecisive, and like that's one of his biggest flaws is that he can never choose anything. And I'm not as extreme as he is, but I do have an issue with trying to just pick one. And it's so hard because I've listened to like a good hour's worth of sample intro music, and they're like 30-second clips. They're not even like full songs, and so that's a lot to put in an hour time frame or something like that. I know I did it on my lunch at one point. Okay, and then I'm also working on some artwork. So I had my friend Mia sketch something out for me, and then I was trying to create it myself. Like I gave her an example of what I wanted, and kind of told her what I wanted. And I tried to do it myself and try to digitize it. So like I scanned it and tried to Photoshop it, but it just looked terrible. And I'm not good with that kind of stuff. I've never like taken classes on photo editing or Photoshop or anything like that. So I decided to like just go ahead and spend a little bit of money and like hire someone else to do it. So I went on Fiverr and picked out an artist that I liked, and hopefully she does a good job. So I'm still waiting on that. So hopefully by the time I go live, that's the artwork I come with, or else maybe I have to look for somebody else. But I really like her portfolio. I looked at her website and I liked almost everything that she made. So hopefully it turns out good. But you'll see it by the time this goes out, so it's gonna be kind of weird. It's weird because I'm not live right now, so like all these episodes are like way in the past because I'm still trying to figure things out. But while I'm figuring things out, I still want to do some recordings and still do the podcast. Anyways, thanks for listening to me ramble about like this whole podcast process. So it's kind of nice just to talk about it and kind of just reflect on like the things I've been doing and things I'm going through, and just starting this whole thing. It's been interesting so far, and there's like a lot of work put into it. Like It's not just recording and then posting it. There's like more into it. Especially if it's something I want to really promote. I still haven't decided. Obviously in the last episode I was talking about like how this would be super awesome if I can make this my full-time job, but that requires like full promoting, like telling everyone and trying to get as many listeners as possible, and that's kind of scary. So we'll see how this goes. Maybe it'll just grow organically. Who knows? So in my notes, I always say reflect on the last episode. So when I write my outline for the new episode, I always listen to the last one so that I can try to learn from it and figure out like my style and like the things that I do. And because I do want to try to make it as live as possible. So I try to do I try not to do a lot of editing, and I try not to cut out a lot of stuff. And because I'm trying to make it more live, I don't think I accomplished what I wanted to in the last episode. So in the last episode, if you haven't listened to it, it was about introvert pet peeves. So I wanted to explain to someone who may not understand like why do introverts have these pet peeves, and explain like why that may like irritate us or frustrate us or something like that. And what I ended up doing for the good portion of the podcast is talk about how much I hate when people do that. I'm not like really explaining why people don't like that. And so the whole intent of that episode was supposed to be me talking about the pet peeve, explaining why it's a pet peeve, and then using my real life experience as an example. But instead I just ranted about why I hate when people do that stuff. So hopefully I'll catch myself, and because some of these episodes are supposed to be informative, right? They're supposed to be informational about introverts and how they are, and how to understand us better, and not just me ranting and not just me complaining, which I feel like that's what the last one was about. But hopefully there was hopefully it was informational, like somewhat informational. But today's episode, I'm going to try to make it more informational. So hopefully I don't rant too much. But I do hope that the last one was still a good listen, and hopefully you still stuck around even after that one. Let's see. Okay, so on to today's episode. So today's episode is going to be about introvert types. So one of the other things that I really love about doing this podcast, other than doing the podcast, is I love learning about these new things. I don't Google stuff about introverts. Like I don't research stuff about introverts on my free time. So I started doing that just for this podcast because that's kind of like the theme I'm going for, right? So it was really interesting to like kind of Google some stuff, and like one of the things I found was these introvert types, and I didn't even know that was a thing. Like I didn't know there were types. So that's what today's episode is going to be. Okay, so there are 4 types of introverts. There's the social introvert, thinking introvert, anxious, and restrained introvert, which make up the acronym STAR, which is, I don't know, interesting, I guess. So I'll go over what I found. I will link the articles in the description if you want to read about them. Some of them are kind of old, but I did I did compare it to a newer article, and it basically says the same thing. So I don't know if there's any like new findings since then, or like additions to these types. So I think it's still relevant and it still makes sense. Okay, so the first one, so social. So in social introvert, this is the more commonly known introvert, the one that people usually associate introverts with. And this is someone who typically says no to parties, don't like huge gatherings, prefers solitary activity over social activities, likes to be in smaller groups, experiences social exhaustion. So like giant parties are just too much for them, basically, and they embrace this JOMO instead of FOMO. So I didn't know what that was. I had to look it up. But apparently FOMO is the more common acronym, and it's fear of missing out. Did not know that was a thing. I mean, I've heard of fear of missing out, but I didn't know people were using the acronym for it. So JOMO is the opposite. It's the joy of missing out. So yeah, so social introverts are more of the solitary people who enjoy alone time and enjoy smaller, intimate groups rather than larger, huge, ragers. Okay, so that's for social, and then the thinking introvert. So these people are the daydreamers. So they're always in their head. One article states they love hypothesizing, creating, ideating, and storytelling to such an extent that it dominates much of their mental space. So ideating, I think that's how you pronounce it. I didn't even know that was a word either. So I had to look that up. I was like, what is that? So what ideating, which I think is how it's pronounced, is to form an idea, thought, or image. So yeah, so basically a daydreamer. So these people tend to be in their heads a lot, and they're thinking out scenarios. They're always daydreaming, which I've said already. I'm not sure. It's like the best, for me, the best term to describe a thinking introvert. The article also does say apparently people tend to cling to their every word because they're good storytellers, because they're very imaginative and creative. Okay, so an anxious introvert. So an anxious introvert, just like the social introvert, says no to parties and huge gatherings, but because it makes them anxious. So not necessarily because they want to be alone or like do a solitary activity. It's mainly because they're anxious about their surroundings and their environment. And anxious introverts tend to be very self-conscious. They tend to ruminate about their social interactions. I had to also look up ruminate, but it does mean to reflect or ponder deeply on a subject. I feel, because I had to look up these words, and I feel kind of dumb. Not, I say that because like in high school, I took like honors English and advanced composition, and in college, I like scored really high in my entrance exam for English and like had really good grades. But ever since college ended, like I feel like I'm just getting dumber and dumber because I don't use anything that I learned from college. I'm not even in the same field that I got my degree in. Anyways, I digress. So back to an anxious introvert. So yeah, so they tend to be self-conscious with their environment. I really resonate with this too, and there's like a whole episode I wanted to get into that talks about this. But I totally get it. I don't do well at gatherings, especially in large gatherings where I don't know anyone, or if I don't know a whole lot of people. And it's kind of difficult because I'm like kind of an awkward person, and not in that like, you know how people are like, I'm totally awkward, and it's like a cutesy thing. No, like I'm actually awkward, and it's awful. It's like not fun to be awkward. So, so I get this one a lot. And then I like tend to say things that I wish I didn't say, and it bothers me for the rest of the day. And then sometimes I'll linger to the following days. It's just, I get this one a lot. But yeah, okay, so that was the anxious introvert. Okay, so on to the restrained introvert. So these people tend to take a while to warm up to someone. So it takes them a while to get going. It's one of those situations where, like, once you get to know me, I open up situations. So they don't open up right away. They're pretty quiet at first. They usually want to observe a person first and, like, really feel out the room before they open up. And once they become more comfortable with you, then they'll open up more. Okay, I think Yeah, so that was the last one. So those are your social, thinking, anxious, and restrained types. So if you're thinking about what kind of introvert you are, there's actually a quiz for that. There's this article I found on blogs.scientificamerican.com that talks about the history of defining introversion, and they talk about the different types and how to determine what type you are. So, unfortunately, in this article, you have to calculate the quiz manually. And I was like, man, I don't want to do that. I'm pretty lazy. Plus, I found the article like on my lunchtime, so I didn't have a whole lot of time to do it. But I did find a BuzzFeed page that puts it in a very convenient online quiz format and calculates it for you. So I went and did that instead. So I'll link that so you can take the quiz also. So before I took the quiz, I was thinking, okay, so what do I think I am? So I definitely resonate with all of them in a way. I do think I resonate mostly with the social, anxious, and thinking type. But if I had to really choose, I wrote down, what did I write down? I wrote down that I am mostly thinking and anxious. The anxious because of like what I said earlier. I don't do well in large groups. I get really nervous. I get very anxious. I don't typically enjoy them. I don't typically enjoy being in new environments either with new people. I have to like prepare myself before that. I tend to, so when I get really nervous and anxious, I tend to sweat, which is very unfortunate. Especially like in situations where I'm drinking alcohol, because alcohol makes me really hot. It makes me really sweaty. And that makes me even more self-conscious. So it makes me sweat even more, even if I'm not like hot anymore. Or like, so that really sucks. That's why I honestly don't drink that often. And that's kind of part of it. Not really, but I also just don't enjoy it that much. Not like I used to. I don't know. It's not as fun as when I was like in my early 20s. Um, I'm not old, like I'm not that old either. I'm not even 30 yet. So it's really like it was more fun a few years ago, I guess. But how I really found out that I'm like more of an anxious introvert is when I started working in the more like corporate world, if you will. So in my last job, so I'm still in the same field, I just don't work for that company anymore. But in my last job, we used to have these like all staffs or all hands, and basically it's just like a huge gathering of people in that company, like in that region, in that metro, and they get together and it's like a good time to start networking with people or meeting up with old colleagues or talking to like upper management and like basically just getting your name out there. At least that's what I saw. I saw it as like a networking opportunity. And I realized that I actually really, really hate networking. I'm not really good at it. Like I've mentioned in, I think, the last episode or whenever it was, like I don't do well with small talk and I'm not good with coming up with conversation topics like just off the top of my head. So it's difficult for me to like start the conversation. So along with that is that I don't like my first all hands or my first couple of all hands, like I didn't know anyone. I only knew like the other like interns who got hired the same time I did. And there wasn't a whole lot of us. There was maybe like I think 3 of us that got hired after our internship. And we weren't on the same project either, so it's not like I kept in touch with or like was in constant contact with them and had conversations with them. So I didn't even actually really know them. So I only knew the people that were like in my department. But again, that was only like a handful of people, and it was just so difficult because we didn't so we like the all hands would be like at a hotel or a conference, center downtown, and we would have to go and drive there after work. So I'm literally going into this all hands where I don't know anyone except for maybe like a handful of people. And I'm going in there by myself. And it was just really uh, difficult for me. And I started sweating like crazy and I was getting really anxious. And I ended up just getting my badge, like my name tag, and then just going straight to the bathroom to just cool down and just like kind of stop sweating and just stop. I had to like just really take a breather and then try again. And then every once in a while, I would like go into the bathroom to take a break. And it probably, I don't know if anyone even noticed, but it was probably weird because I was going to the bathroom a lot. But after a while, it got a little better because I started to finally meet new people and know more people. So there was actually people I can like hang out with and go talk to. But if like for some reason, like there was one all hands where all the people I knew either left the company or they weren't going to the specific one because they started doing them like earlier. So they used to be like after work, but for some reason they like started making it at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon or something like that, but people don't get off till 5. So we would have to schedule that into our day. And some people just, they can't make it because they have like important meetings with the client. So I would go and I would be like the only one that I knew, and that would just like reset, and then I would be anxious again about it. Like I wouldn't be comfortable anymore. So that's how I found out that I'm a very anxious person, because I didn't have to do that in college. Like I I didn't do any networking. I didn't go to any like the job fairs. I just went to my classes and that was it. So I didn't have to do like this whole meet and greet where there's just like a bunch of people that you don't know. Especially like in the job that I was in, everyone, even now actually, everyone's a lot older than me too. So like there's not a whole lot of people in my own cohort. So that was also difficult. Like everyone was like talking about their kids, and I'm like, I have a dog, and he he finished puppy training class. So yeah, so I couldn't really relate to them because there's like that age gap, but that wasn't the case for some people. Like one of my best like coworker friends is older than me and I love her. Like I would like spend my whole lunch just talking to her. Like I can talk to her for hours. But for the most part, it's hard for me to connect to some of my colleagues because of that age gap. And it's not just work too. Like I don't like going to parties where like a friend's party, but I only know the host and like I don't know any of his or her friends. That makes me really nervous. When those situations come up, I usually ask like, "Hey, can I bring a friend with me?" That way I have a buddy the whole time and then it's not that bad. But if I am the only one there and I don't know anyone, I either just won't go or only go for like a short period of time. So that's why I think I'm more of an anxious introvert. And the other one is the thinking introvert. So I think I'm a thinking introvert because I tend to be in my head a lot. Sometimes I'll just sit and think up scenarios in my head and just play it out in my head. And at one point, I wanted to become a writer because of that. I wanted to like take my thoughts and put them into a book. I didn't pursue that, and I don't know if I will. I think this podcast is my version of that book I was gonna write because it's putting my thoughts out into a more audio version, basically. And I'm definitely a thinking introvert because I like to daydream a lot. And sometimes I'll just be at a party and I'll be on my phone, but I'll be just thinking about stuff. And I just use my phone because I don't want to just be sitting there just looking blankly into nothing. So sometimes I just pretend I'm just like scrolling on Instagram or whatever, and I've already like seen everything, and I'm just like mindlessly scrolling, so it looks like I'm looking at I'm not just daydreaming. But now, like, that's out. And now if my family hears this, they're going to be like, oh, is that what she's actually doing? But yeah, so I think I'm thinky and anxious. But I did, so that's what I wrote. And that's why I think I'm those things. And I didn't pick social, even though social, I definitely resonate with social. I think I'm very much a social introvert, but I think I picked anxious because maybe like I scored the same in those areas, but social maybe it's like a point less than anxious. So that's what I'm assuming. Like they're like if it's a score of like 38 for anxious, I probably got like a 37 for social or something like that. And then I didn't pick restrained because I mean, I have a podcast, so I'm definitely not restrained in that aspect. I think I'm situationally restrained. So I'm a restrained introvert when it comes to work and work colleagues because like, it's the workplace. So I have to be really careful about what I say and I don't like sharing too much of my life. I've made a mistake of doing that before and gossip is a real thing. People do it. It's not just in TV shows or dramas. People love it. People tend to not keep promises and they tend to talk about other people. And for me, like I've let something slip before and it's totally accidental. Like I didn't mean to let something slip. It just happens. So when you tell someone a secret, it's no longer a secret. So when you're at work, like you have to be really careful and that's why at work I'm very restrained. Like I don't share stuff about my personal life that I don't want other people to know. And I try to read the room, I try to read and observe my colleagues first. I try to figure them out first and see what kind of type of person they are before I start sharing anything. I obviously don't share anything about religion or politics. But there's like those little things that you have to like really be careful. Like just, people can have a different point of view and then I don't want to deal with conflict or drama in the workplace. So that's why I think I am only restrained when it comes to certain situations. I don't associate it with like outside of work, like when I'm like with my friends or family or like even meeting a new person. But honestly, like after college, that hasn't really happened much. Like I don't really meet a whole lot of new people outside of work. So I think I may have become a restrained introvert only because most of my interactions with other individuals outside my family and friend circle are with work colleagues. But for the most part, I don't think I associate it, like I probably will still score in that category, but not super high. So yeah, so that's why I think I wrote down anxious and thinking. So I did take the BuzzFeed quiz, and unfortunately the BuzzFeed quiz doesn't give you your total score. So if you did like the Scientific American blog version where you had to manually score yourself, it'll tell you like obviously it'll tell you the different scores you have for each area, but BuzzFeed just gives you your top two. So the top two they ended up giving me is social and thinking. So thinking I already knew that was going to be what I was going to get anyways, especially like with this podcast. I think it makes it pretty evident that I am a thinking introvert because I'm like basically talking out my thoughts. So like I would typically have this in my head, but now I'm like recording it and like putting it out there and into the world. Social. So like I said earlier, I think maybe I scored a point higher than anxious for social. So that's why that ended up being on there instead of anxious. So I think those two are pretty close. I haven't done the manual calculation one. I probably will just when I'm not lazy so I can figure out like what my actual scores are. But yeah, so those are the different types of introverts. I hope that was helpful in understanding the different types and like I hope you guys take the quiz. I thought it was pretty fun. Like it's pretty interesting to find out. I think based off the definitions of each type. You probably already know what you are, but in case you don't know, it's just a fun quiz to do. And then even have like your extrovert friends and family take it. It'd be interesting to see what they score in. But yeah, so let me know if there are listeners out there, like if you're actually listening to this, let me know what you got. Let me know the types that you are, and like, if do you think the quiz is wrong? Do you think it's right? Um, Reach out to me on social media. I'll link all that in the description. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. You can even email me if you don't have social media. So that will all be on there. And I hope you liked this podcast. And if you did, I will talk to you in the next one. Thanks, guys.